Today's video is made possible by our friends at SimpliSafe. Welcome back, friends, to the shop. This morning I was going over comments that I'd received from yesterday's video, and one of you really took me to task on something that I have kind of overlooked. Now, kind of being the self-described preparedness guy, I have not said anything or even commented upon the tragedy that was going on in Texas with folks that are freezing to death down there. Now, to be honest, I wasn't even aware of the extent of this incident until he brought this to my attention. I've almost completely cut myself off from media. So I went on there and looked, and I had no idea to the extent, to what extent it was that people were dying down there. People were trying to stay warm in their clothes. It was just, or in their cars. It was just heartbreaking. So I want to share with you the top 10 things that a person can do to keep yourself and your family warm in that environment, in a home that doesn't have any electricity. Now, I can speak to this because we live in an area that we lose electricity all the time. And when we moved into our last place, our last homestead, I think that first week we were there, we were 9 days without power or electricity or heat. So it's not something that is alien to me. So I want to cover it. We're going to cover some things that you can do in the future for problems and some things you can do right now with what you have in the house. So let's start with number one. I made some notes here on my phone, so I'm going to reference that just so I stay on task here. But we're going to talk about propane heaters. Now, your propane heaters, be careful with those. There's two types. There's propane heaters that are catalytic, that are designed to use inside of a house that are safe, and those that are not. Not all propane heaters are safe. But something like this, a little heat buddy, is a really great asset to have. These are pretty affordable. They are safe to run inside an RV or a house, and they take the little green bottles on the side. Now, you're going to want to get the adapter kit. They're not expensive. It's an adapter hose. You're going to want to adapt this to a large tank. Now, I know this might not be helpful to you right now, and I've been told that propane is pretty scarce and not even available. This is something that you might want to be able to think about getting in the future. You should have 3 of these. You probably already have 2 for your gas grill. Just get an extra one. 3 of these will run that heater on medium for the better part of a week. Propane's really nice for this type of a thing because it does 2 things. It heats and it cooks. So you can put your gas grill, your camping thing on there, and the storage is pretty much indefinite. It's not going to go bad on you, and you can buy it, set it aside, and it's going to be there when you need it. One other thing that's real handy that we've made use of when we'd lost power for a long time were these small butane stoves. Now, these are, a lot of people use these for camping. You know, you can't get that thing to lock until you right here, but these little guys are great, and they're cheap. I've seen these things for as cheap as like $20. There's lots of different brands. They're essentially all the same thing, but you should have a couple of these things, and these are the fuel bottles that they run on, and these will store indefinitely. So not only will this cook, but it will heat as well. It's not going to have as long, it's not going to last as long because of the small bottles, but at least you can hook up or heat up some beans or some stew with that. It's a really great combination to have. Also, please, please, please get yourself a carbon monoxide alarm. I couldn't believe, there are families, entire families that have succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning for lack of a $20 alarm that you can plug in and or have battery operated. It's just such a shame. This is going to detect that. And what's sad is, and I saw this with the fire department as a first responder, what's really common with folks is even if they have a generator, the power will go out. And I've seen them run the generator outside the garage, being responsible, understanding that carbon monoxide is deadly, and going to bed and not realizing that the cold air intake for their furnace system was in the garage, and it sucked all that carbon monoxide in the house, and they went to sleep and never woke up. It's tragedy. It's a $20 alarm would have made all the difference in the world. So the propane is a really good way to go. Number 2 is a CO2 sensor. Number 3, can bring everyone together and try to make your stand in the smallest part of your house as possible. Probably somewhere around the kitchen and the living room. Take towels and roll them up and put them underneath all of the doors. if you have a 2-story house and you have a staircase going upstairs, all of the heat that you're able to save or produce is going to rush right up those stairs and go away. So take some sheets or some painter's plastic or tarps or anything you have and close all of that off. Make sure that you get yourself in the smallest living area as possible. There's a reason why folks, before we had power, families lived in small houses, all living in the same room. It's because it takes a lot of energy to heat these big McMansions, these big houses that we have, and you don't want that. Close off those unwanted rooms, close the doors, just don't go into them, and bring your family together into a smaller area. Also storm windows. Now, up here, up north, it's common to have storm windows. We have double and even triple pane glass. What that is it creates an airspace that is really easy to heat. Now, you folks that live down south, some of you in the older houses are going to have single pane windows. There's a massive energy transfer between a single pane window when it's cold outside and it's warm outside. So you want to build some sort of a storm window. You can do this all by yourself with just some painter's plastic and some duct tape. My granddad, I remember, he made his own storm windows out of plexiglass, and every fall he would pull them out of the garage and take them outside and put the storm windows up because they make a huge difference. You can essentially do the same thing with stuff you have. If you have some clear plastic, what you do is you cut it about the size of the window and you get some duct tape and you tape it to the wall. Pull it tight as you can, and what that's going to create is a barrier, an airspace, and heat has a hard time transferring between that. It's amazing the difference it will make. It will stop that coldness that's coming through in your house. One little pro tip: when you have painter's plastic like this, you can thank Jariah for this. He taught me this little trick. You take your painter's plastic, and if you twist it real tight like this, then take your knife out and cut it. You can cut it all at one time rather than trying to run along and cut a 12-foot piece, and you get a nice straight cut that way. So painter's plastic is really, really good for that with some duct tape. Okay, so number 4, Car Rv Lifeboat, sit in the garage. So folks, if you have to, you can, of course, get in your car. Use that as a lifeboat. You can get in there and run the heater, or if you have an RV. My parents currently have had their power out for about a week now, and they're using their RV as a power plant for the house. They've got a generator in there. They're running the cords in and hooked up to the refrigerators and those vital circuits that they need. Also, don't forget, a lot of your newer cars and trucks are going to have a power inverter, meaning they're going to have the ability to convert that 12-volt power to 110, and you can utilize that in the house. By running extension cords in there, you can run space heaters, you can be charging phones, you can run electric blankets. You might even be able to keep your refrigerator running if it's not too big. It just kind of depends on the vehicle, but don't overlook that as a resource, as kind of a remote power supply. And for goodness sakes, if you are going to go and take refuge in your car, pull it outside, pull it out of the garage, because that carbon monoxide will build up and it will poison you. The exhaust pipe is pumping that out nonstop. Just be careful. Be careful with that stuff. Okay, Car Rv Lifeboat. Also, another thing, using those inverters, electric blankets. I checked on Amazon and they're still available. An electric blanket is a really good way to keep warm, and they don't take a tremendous amount of power. By having an electric blanket in your house, that's going to cover you really good and keep you warm so your family can sleep well. Oh goodness. Burn candles to generate heat. Now, if you're in a small area and if you get your everything sealed off and you have candles in the house, burn those candles. Those candles are aflame and they can create quite a bit of heat. I've been a long fan of these UCO candle lanterns because they do produce a lot of heat. There actually enough heat will come off of these that you could heat a small car or even a tent, and it will make a big difference with the room. It gives you light and heat. And I like these little lanterns because you have a small cooktop on the top that you could heat up a can of beans or some Dinty Moore stew, and you don't have to eat cold food if you have an electric range. These are very versatile and really a handy thing to have. Number 6, set up a tent inside, sleeping bags and candles. If you have camping gear, if you have a tent or pup tents and your house is cold, go ahead and set those up inside of your house. Get your sleeping bags out. Now you're talking about an area that's much easier to heat than the entire house, right? If you took a 2-man or a 4-man tent and you had a candle, and be careful with the candles, you know, don't be going in there with open flames and going to sleep. That's just a recipe for disaster. You want to be sure you have something that is going to be able to be contained. That's really important. But by throwing a blanket over that tent, it's amazing. Just your own body heat will produce a tremendous amount of heat. So just think about that. You set up your tents inside with your sleeping bags and sleep inside of those guys. Number 7, thermal mass. I heard a lot of folks that you're having rolling blackouts in power, and if you have an oven, of course, you know, it makes sense you would open up the door or turn the burners on. That produces a lot of heat, and that's going to be able to heat your apartment or your house up until the power goes off. So if you're experiencing that, don't be afraid to go out into your yard and dig up whatever you have to do, but fill that oven full of rocks, bricks. What we're trying to go for is a thermal mass. If you have water tanks, cans like this, 5-gallon cans, which you should have about 6 of these every house, get those in there, get everything heating up, because when that power goes out, all of that heat that's built up in those bricks and those rocks and that water and that thermal mass is going to time release slowly over a period of time. It was common back in the day in greenhouses. Guys would take 55-gallon drums of water, put them in the greenhouses, and as the sun came through and you had that greenhouse effect warming up the greenhouse, it also brought the water up to that temperature, so it might be, you know, 90, 100 degrees in there. And then when the sun goes down at night and cools down, that thermal mass and that water slowly time releases heat off and keeps the plants from freezing, and the same thing can happen here. So have that water in there and as much thermal mass as you could get. I mean, good grief, if you had to get 5-gallon buckets full of gravel, you know, even that's better than nothing in a small area. That can extend your heat for quite a period of time. SimpliSafe is an incredibly effective, reliable home security system that you can install yourself.
SimpliSafe on. Home.
If you've been worried about safety but have been putting it off, don't wait a moment longer. You can order online or you can call on the phone. It will be delivered right to your door. In most cases, you can install it yourself in under an hour, and you'll get to enjoy 24-hour monitoring, and they will call the police or the fire department if you have any problems. SimpliSafe offers all kinds of sensors that you can integrate to your home, from freeze sensors to water sensors to smoke detectors, glass breaking, and even HD cameras that you can monitor what's going on in your home remotely from your iPhone or Android. Our friends at SimpliSafe have asked me to share a personal story of why I like the system, and one of the features that we've really enjoyed is having a panic button installed in the master bedroom. As you guys know, Jack and I have been heading out for some snow bike adventures from time to time, and that leaves Mrs. W at home alone. She really takes a lot of confidence and feels a lot more secure knowing that with the push of a button, she can have emergency services coming and that all of the doors and windows and everything are monitored. I know that it means a lot to her, and that's something that she's enjoyed immensely. If you're interested in securing your home with 24-hour monitoring, I invite you to go to simplisafe.com/Wranglerstar and order your very own system now. We've got water bottles, yeah, also go to bed with hot water bottles if you have the ability to have those as well. I mean, it was very common back before the days of power, electricity. Families would go to bed with hot water bottles. You don't see that too much anymore, but it was cold and they would put the hot water bottles in. You can even find old bed pans that they used to put coals from the fire into kind of a canister, and they would slide those under the sheets, and that would help warm up the bed and keep them warm. So those things are still relevant, and you can still do that today. Let's see. Also, when it comes to water storage, you know, water could be a problem as well. If your pipes are freezing, this is kind of common knowledge for folks that live up north, but if you not used to it, one way you can keep your house pipes from freezing is keep them running. When it gets really, really cold up here, we'll go through all of the house, all of the bathrooms and the sinks and all that, and turn them on just so they're just trickling a little bit, just so that water's moving. Because moving water is doesn't tend to freeze like static water, water that's not moving. Also, open up all of your cabinets underneath. So if you open those up so that the pipes and the drains and everything can get a little bit of extra heat in there and some circulation, makes a big difference. Seems like it's a little bit wasteful, but it's a lot better than having your whole house freeze up and all your pipes split. That's a huge problem. And also regarding water, if you're on a well, or if maybe the ice storm is so bad that the municipal water is no longer delivering water to you, remember you've got 55 gallons of water in your water heater. And you want to get that out of there. Your water heater is most likely going to be in the garage or in an area that may be unheated or you just can't heat. And when that's going to freeze, and there's a good chance that that's going to break and destroy your hot water heater. All those are going to have a drain on the bottom. So drain that out and capture that into your cans. If you don't have cans, get any receptacle that you can and line your bathtub with plastic if you have it and put that water in there and save it because you might need it. It's going to give you a little thermal mass if you have a bathroom that you're heating, and it's going to give you, in a pinch, the ability to have something to drink. Because if you can't get out, and if you're out of gas and the whole city shut down, that's critical because you can only survive about 3 days without water. So make sure you use that resource and collect that water as well. We have number 9, generators, gas, solar, don't forget the cords. Now, generator, of course, that's self-explanatory. It's nice to really nice thing to have. You can charge your phone, you can run electric blankets, space heaters, you can run your refrigerator so you're not losing your food. That's not an option for a lot of people. If you live in a condominium or you live in an apartment, I mean, how are you going to get a gas generator going? Or what if you're a shut-in or someone older that can't deal with that? Well, there is a good solution. These solar generators are becoming very affordable now, and there's a lot of companies making really good ones. And all it really is it's a large capacity lithium battery with a small inverter in it. So you'll have a series of plugs on the front of them where you can plug in 110, you can plug in USB, USB-C, you can charge your phones, you can charge your flashlights, you could even run an electric blanket off of this, and it's very, very handy. I love solar generators. I probably use this thing 2 or 3 times a week. I'm constantly packing it around and plugging things in. It's just a portable power station. If you really want to make it functional, couple this with a portable solar generator or a solar panel like this. These are very affordable now. This solar panel, if you put it in direct sun, and if you're in Texas, you have lots of sun and all the snow is even more reflective, will charge that battery up in a daylight cycle so that you can put this out, be charging everything up, and you can charge directly from these for small things like your phones or even run a LED light bulb. And then at night, you're going to have a fully charged solar generator that you might be able to run your electric blanket or small things that might make life a little bit better for you. Don't underestimate the cords as well. Even if you do have a generator, before I made this video, I called my dad and asked him, because he's been without power for a week now, you know, what were the top 5 things that really made a difference in this power outage? And he said extension cords. Man, and I couldn't agree more. I have always had generators and always lived in places where the power went out a lot. When you live in the Pacific Northwest with all these trees and power lines are not buried, they're overhead, and we get ice storms, of course, power is out for a long period of time. You can't have too many extension cords and have splitters, because this gives you the ability to have your generator outside, run cords in, feed circuits, feed your refrigerator, feed your space heater, whatever, and have the splitters on the ends. I remember times where I've had 4 extension cords running in under the front door, going around and powering everything. Also, your neighbor may have a generator, and maybe he's not using all of it. You might talk him into letting you come over and plug in for a few hours a day to power up a few things, and having enough cord to go over there and to connect to your neighbor's house is really handy. You just can't have enough of these. And don't get those little flimsy ones. Make sure you get the big ones, the contractor ones with the grounds on them, so that you can run some real power. But that's something that you really, really want. Also, don't overlook alternate ways where you can get power. If you have these booster, a lot of us have these booster jump packs in our trucks for our shop for cars. Most of these are going to have a USB port on there. Now these are not extended for long run time, or designed for long run times, but they do really well at charging phones and flashlights and things. So that if you're completely out of power and you're really desperate, don't overlook that. You can bring that in and you might be able to charge with that as well. In addition to that, a guy should have, if you don't already, an inverter. An inverter just is the same thing that's in that solar generator, but this is a standalone version. These are very affordable, and if you have a vehicle with a car battery, you can take these out and snap them onto the battery, run the car, and that gives you a 110 circuit. So you could essentially run an extension cord to this into your house and power those things, heaters, space blankets and such. Very, very nice, and you don't have to sleep out in the car. They come in all different sizes. This is a 1000. You can get smaller ones, 300, 400. It just depends on what you need. But a power inverter like this is super, super handy. Oh goodness, what else do we have here? That was number 9. And number 10, the final thing. If the power is out, and it's cold outside, you may kind of overlook or not think about your refrigerators and your freezers. Now those are very sealed and they're cold. Just because it's cold outside doesn't mean that it's going to stay cold in there. It's actually going to be, over time, it's going to be warmer than it is outside. So eat that food first. Make sure you get it before it spoils, and then save your dry goods, your foods, your beans and your rice. If it's cold, it's freezing outside, take as many pots and pans and different things that you can, put them outside and let the cold turn the water into ice, and then at night bring that in and put it inside the refrigerator, put it inside the freezer, and that will carry you through. That will extend that food and keep that insulated box cooler. It might pick you up a day or two, and it could make a big difference. So those are just some tips, and I'll just also, just a little extra one, make sure you go and make contact with your neighbors to the right and to the left of you. They may have resources that you don't. They may have a generator that runs on propane, that they're all out of propane, and you may have 5 gallons in your gas grill, or you might be able to combine resources and help one another out. Maybe they'll let you run an extension cord over there. But the real concerning thing is folks that are not able to care for themselves. If you've got a widow or a shut-in, just make sure that she's okay. And if need be, bring her into your house and have them come in and look after her and care for them. If everyone does that in a community, if you know the status of your person to your left and to your right, then everyone will be looked after and no one's going to fall through the cracks and be left alone and abandoned. So just be aware of that. Pool your resources. Communities back in the day always gathered together, pooled resources, because that's what it took to survive. And we, in our comfortable Western civilization and our current technology, have created a world where we can live independently from the help of one another. But when we come into situations like that, it really gets back to the way things used to be. And it's important to rely upon each other and to be there for one another and to know, just be your brother's keeper. Just make sure you know how everyone's doing and that they have what they need. And don't lose hope. Just remember that this is a temporary thing. It's not going to last forever, and the sunshine will be back. So just hunker down, do the best you can, use your head, use the resources you have at your disposal, and learn from this. When you come out the other side, realize how you were in want, what was really a difficulty, what was really a hardship for you, and make sure that when things come back into stock, heaters and propane and electric blankets and that sort of thing, that you get that in your house, so that when this happens again, you can weather the storm a little bit better and you're not going to be in such dire straits. That was a big wake-up call for me. When we moved into our old place and we had that 7, 8, 9 days without power and a leaky roof and no heat, I vowed to myself, never again will I put my family through this horrible experience, and we made sure that we had things in place so that the next time that happened, we were much better prepared. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. You guys are constantly in our prayers, and may God bless all of you. Please keep my family in your prayers as well, and we'll see you all on the next video.